Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Weekly News Live. I'm Jake. I'm the managing editor of iGaming Next, as our regular viewers will know by now. And joining me once again this week, it gives me great pleasure to welcome back Nico Jansen and Conor Mulheir. Conor, Nico, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you, Jake. Thanks for having us. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. I'm feeling fresh as a daisy and not jet lagged at all because I wasn't the one in New York last week. How are you two getting on? Are you recovering okay?
I'm getting there now, but Nico, how are you, mate? You were out there with us last week.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Still struggling just a little bit with the jet lag, but when I was on the break gaming inspecting the run parkour with Pierre, he gave me a little bit of a hint how to overcome the jet lag. I will just stick to it to this, and as this is facing confidential information of the former dynamic duo. I can't provide you with any kind of hints and tips what Pierre and me were talking about, but it's big.
The secret, I believe, is to fly business class. That's what I've heard. It helps a lot. Not the luxury that I was afforded, of course.
Yeah, Nico, actually, I mentioned that on last week's stream, that run around Central Park, where you seemed to do it on a bicycle.
Exactly. No, not kidding around, not kidding around. So if you just take the kind of big role model of the break run is the Tour de France, right? Where the cyclists being left behind are always taken care of, and that was pretty much my task. I'm just making sure that the whole iGaming family will stay together. And I made sure that each and everyone reaches the breakfast, which I did. So 100% fulfillment of my KPI, leave no man behind. So I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. And thanks for asking, Jake.
I
Well done, Nico. Good
I
job.
contemplated joining the run riding a horse, Jake, but I couldn't get hold of one in time. So I just had to
You
leave.
could have taken one off a police officer in Times Square, Conor. You should have seen how that went for you.
Oh my
Yeah,
God,
that
speaking of that, one for the grandkids. I got a ticket in Times Square from the NYPD on my last night in New York, Friday night,
What for?
drinking in public. I didn't realise that wasn't allowed. I live in London. We do whatever we want. But
Wow.
yeah, turns out I was slightly breaking the rules, but they were very nice about it. So props to those guys in Times Square. They were very kind.
Yeah, that's a different area. You know, you're not allowed to drink in public, but you're able to smoke in public. That's why you have all the weed smoke and the smell all over Times Square. So you just mixed up things. I'm pretty sure you would get a fine if you would run around at Piccadilly Circus smoking something. So that's just a different approach. But as you're a global citizen, of course, sometimes you just mix up things. But all good, all good.
Just to answer one of our regular watchers, Katie Di Stefano, in our comments, how much was the ticket? It was only $25. And actually, when they came up to us, I was with a friend who I won't name for the sake of privacy. The police officers came up and said, "Sorry, guys, you can't drink out here." I said, "Oh, would you like me to throw my can away?" They said, "No, that's all right, sir. You can chug it." So I had this huge can of White Claw hard seltzer. Took me about 5 minutes to pack it, but yeah, fair play. I didn't lose any money on the drink. At least didn't have to throw it away.
There we go then. Conor fought the law and the law won. I'm glad you made it back, to be honest with you, Conor, after that little episode.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, well done for answering Katie's question. We should probably say hello to everybody that's watching. Great to see the comments flooding in this afternoon, including Rory, who works with us. He says, "Hi, Gaming Next. I'm listening with my dad. Great talk, Jake, Nico, and Conor." So hello to Rory and hello to Rory's dad as well. Thank you for joining us. Who else have we got? Stephen says, "Hey." Valerie says, "Who is shut down?" And we've got some more on that later on Ukraine. Bogdan joins us as always. Great to have you with us. And Timothy says, "Boo," which I think is in reference to the fact you can't drink on the street in New York. So Timothy has your back, Conor.
Yes, we've also got John Wright here from StatsDrone listening in, but also here to snag a few more LinkedIn connections. Always networking, John. We're bumping into each other in New York, and this guy's no joke. He is a networking masterclass, one to watch out for. So thanks for joining us, John.
Yep, good to hear. That's what the show's all about. There it is, working in practice. Okay, Nico, you're back. You're back and you're in good form. Should we crack on with 10 and 5?
Yeah, so first of all, Hollywood loves a comeback, and since Britney fucked hers up, it's all about the three musketeers of us. And of course, I will take over the 10 and 5. And as soon as I hit the stop button, I will just start. No, I will just start straight away, gaining some extra seconds. There you go. So, as we're all aware of the white paper, which will be released by the UK Gambling Commission, there are still rumors going around. One of the rumors is the Betting and Gaming Council, BGC, has urged UK ministers to consider responsible bettors when deciding whether or not to prohibit free bets and promotions, as it could cause a shift to the unregulated market. And this decision is, first of all, based on the rumors going around that free bets might be considered as not allowed. And the BGC recently commissioned a YouGov to conduct a survey where it reportedly discovered that 82% of bettors believe betting operators should be allowed to offer promotions such as free bets to their customers. So just based on this survey, it should be good. Another topic, Playtech invests 85 million in Hard Rock Digital to expand US horizons. As part of the deal, Playtech will pay $85 million for a low single-digit percentage stake in Hard Rock Digital, with proceeds from the investments to fund Hard Rock's global expansion. Under the terms of the agreement, Hard Rock will license a range of the developers' technology solutions and iGaming content. So this is a joint venture as well. Then heading over to Sportradar, as they set sights on 900 million revenue after surpassing all 2022 targets. So for the Sportradar reported a revenue for the last quarter of 2022 of 206.3 million euros, which is an up of 35% year on year. And now they're looking forward to a revenue outlook of 2023, which will be in the range of 902 million up to 920 million. So, Carsten, shout out to a great development. Heading over to Brazil once again, Lula and Haddad seek definite tax terms for Brazilian sports betting. The sports betting segment welcomed the news that the Ministry of Finance, under the ruling of Haddad, is working to start taxing the activity. And they expect the sports betting sector should earn 12 billion reais, which is roughly 2.16 billion euros. And the formalization of specific rules will facilitate its growth. So, as we can see in Brazil and also in India, as soon as the tax regime is well set up, licenses will be given out shortly. Then, quite interesting, AGA expect 15.5 billion in the NCAA March Madness wagers. So this year's March Madness will see 68 million American adults place 15.5 billion in bets, according to a survey conducted by the American Gaming Association, AGA. And by comparison, last year the organization estimated that 45 million people would bet on the 2022 tournament, wagering a total of 3.1 billion. And now it's 5 times higher. Massachusetts mobile sports betting market has gone live also for the online sports bettors after the rollout of retail sports betting towards the end of January. Now with mid of or beginning of March, we see also the online vertical being allowed as well. Staying in the US with New York sports betting remains strong as they reported a handle of 1.5 billion. Unfortunately, the revenue slipped to 108 million. The Gaming Commission announced Tuesday that Sportsbook posted 108.2 million in sports betting revenues in February. Handle, while still the highest in the nation for the month at almost 1.5 billion, was also down, dropping 18.1% from January. January's record of 1.8 billion with a hold of nearly 7.2%. Hold your horses just with this number. Because within February, we've just seen the Super Bowl. So we are all thrilled to see the March Madness numbers, and I'm pretty sure that they will continue to grow. Now heading over to legal, FIAU penalizes Casino Malta with roughly 233,000 for failure to report suspicious activity. As we all know, Casino Malta as a retail casino, so the regulators even don't hold back for the retail shops as well. Then to our friends from the Netherlands and my uncle René Jansen, the KSL continues to fine the operators. Now it's a fine of 400,000 euros for Bet365, as the operator has sent numerous email promotional messages to several registered consumers that could be categorized as young adults, including bonus offers. And last but not least, heading over to tech, OPAP selects OpenBet to power their online sportsbook. So OPAP, founded in 1958 as a member of the well-known All-Win Group, who are still which is still big in the UK with winning the lottery, is the leading gaming operator in Greece, and OpenBet is now powered. OPAP is now powered by OpenBet.
Good job, Nico. Take a deep breath. I think we managed about 10 in 7 there, so not too bad. Not the longest 10 in 5 segment we've ever seen by a long stretch, so nicely done. Let me say hello to Adnan and Akeem, who join us. Welcome onto the stream, guys. And just a note to say that Rory's commented again, except it's not Rory. Rory's not watching with his dad. Rory's son, Finlay, is watching with Rory. Finlay, let me say, this is for over 18s only. I'm sorry, but gambling is a very sensitive topic, and Nico, our co-presenter, has already used at least one very naughty word. So please don't follow our example. Do as Rory says and not as he does. That's my advice. So, yes, and Nico, I must say, I'd always thought there was a bit of a family resemblance there with you and the I've never put 2 and 2 together. I didn't realise he was your uncle, but I should have noticed. So, nice rundown. Lots and lots going on this week. Very busy week, actually. And Jake, you have been reporting on one of the biggest stories of the week as we dive into our more in-depth coverage of some of this week's news. So you've brought us one of the biggest stories coming out of Ukraine at the moment. It's a bit of an unexpected, what would you say, an unexpected move in that market. Tell us a bit about what's going on over there.
Yeah, sure. So the beginning of this week, I think it came as a bit of a surprise, where basically the government and the president, who has been on the news an awful lot, obviously during the war with Russia, basically announced these sanctions on 280 different gambling companies that effectively has banned them from operating in the market for 50 years. So pretty significant. The reason they've said they've banned these gambling companies is because they've withdrawn funds from our state and have been used to finance various Russian schemes. So this, they feel, is kind of a shortcut to clamping down finances that are heading Russia's way as part of the war, whether directly or indirectly from online gambling. So a pretty sensitive story, and one that's still developing. But the biggest sort of shock I suppose, was the fact that Parimatch, which is a huge Ukrainian company and employs like 2,000 Ukrainian staff, and has also donated, I think, around 10 million euros to like war aid and good causes as part of the war, was actually included in part of these sanctions. And that meant that basically overnight, it had to suspend all of its operational activities in the country. Its platform was unavailable. Its website was blocked, and basically all staff were told that they weren't going to be able to fulfill their jobs under these sanctions. So, yeah, that was probably by far the most shocking part of the story, I would say, at the beginning of the week, especially.
Yeah, and you mentioned this is, of course, a developing story. We don't have all the information yet. Have we heard anything about what's going to happen either to those employees of Parimatch or to customers of Parimatch? What's going to happen to all the funds that obviously must have been tied up in those operations prior to closure?
Yeah, not really, to be honest with you. There's still a hell of a lot of uncertainty. I think the president said in a live TV address this week that there was no way back for these companies, which kind of, sounds like the door is going to be closed to appeals, even though I'm fairly sure they are being made by Parimatch and probably by others. Because the most interesting thing to note is that Ukraine spent a long time to get its gambling industry regulated, basically. And that only happened in the last few years. I think 2020, it was signed into law. 2021, the first kind of licenses were issued. So this is still, a newly regulated market, if you like. So for 2023 to come along and basically all bookmakers get shut down by government sanctions, is not what they would have seen coming. But I guess, those are the uncertainties that come with a kind of wartime environment, I suppose. In terms of the players, I don't think anybody's thinking about the players, as tragic as that is, but that's often the case with these kind of, business situations that we report on, is that the consumer is the one that gets forgotten. But I think the Ukrainian Gambling Council, which is kind of the trade body that represents licensed operators and is kind of, lobbying for a regulated environment, has certainly said it's going to try and lead discussions with the government to get more clarity on this decision, and also to get Parimatch exempt from the list of sanctions, because they've said themselves that they think it was a mistake that they were included in the list along with other bookmakers.
Yeah, it's certainly very shocking because, I mean, Parimatch as far as I know, they suspended any Russian operations as soon as they did previously have operations in Russia, but they suspended them immediately when the invasion began around this time last year. Now, Jake, you've been doing some really in-depth investigating and reporting around this story. Of course, none of us can see into the heart of government and what's happening on behind the scenes over there.
Mm-hmm.
But you have spoken to some people who are a lot closer to the issue and who have their own sort of insider information, and you've put together a very impressive and very nicely written report on what people are kind of saying about this behind the scenes. Do you want to give us a bit more color on that, or should we just instruct our beloved listeners to go and have a read of the article, because there's a huge amount of information in there? But do you want to give us an indication of what some of the rumors and whispers going around are?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right to say that if anybody wants the full picture, certainly as I understand it from speaking to people this week, they should read the article and decide for themselves. But we could probably break it down a little bit as well into some key factors that might basically explain why the government included Parimatch. Because certainly for me and you, Conor, and possibly for Nico, that was a confusing thing when the announcement was made at the beginning of the week. So I kind of asked people in Ukraine and operating in the market why Parimatch was included, considering all those factors we've just talked about. And it can kind of be broken down into probably 2 or 3 different reasons. So the first is that there's this intense rivalry between Parimatch and 1xBet, which is another massive CIS region bookmaker, huge global company, admittedly of Russian origin, but that's not really the point in this case.
Based in Cyprus, let's just clarify that.
Sorry?
Based in
Cyprus,
not in Russia.
Yeah, that's right. And when the war started, basically Parimatch and some other Ukrainian operators put together a marketing campaign that basically pushed to have 1xBet stripped of its license in Ukraine because of its Russian origins and historical links to Russia. And that actually succeeded. So on the 7th of September last year, the 1xBet license to operate in Ukraine was revoked. It wasn't under the 1xBet brand, but they were the parent company. So some people have suggested that 1xBet, in a way of kind of getting revenge and as extra motivation against Parimatch, was able to persuade lobbyists in the country and people close to government that Parimatch itself should be included in the list of sanctions, along with all the other bookmakers. And the reason they kind of, had the ear of those important people was because they themselves have donated a huge amount to Ukraine aid and war efforts. And as somebody in the piece said, like most things, this is all about money. The other reason why President Zelensky was kind of so keen to clamp down on all bookmakers, regardless of kind of where they stem from, is because there are these stories that the troops themselves that are actually waging the war on the front line have been gambling because there's not an awful lot for them to do. Basically, there's different financial sectors being shut down. There's probably large periods of time where they're stuck outside without a lot to do or in hiding, and basically online casino via mobile has been a distraction for them. So that was kind of one motivating factor for the president himself to sign off on this decree. And then the final factor I'll touch on is that even though both of these companies had made kind of significant contributions to the war and to the war relief efforts, perhaps that number wasn't as significant as it should have been, considering their overall turnover from Ukraine, both in its regulated market and from kind of Curacao licensed entities that might be in some way related with both companies. So I wouldn't say that was a nutshell, but that was that was the short version. If you want the long version, like Conor said, probably best you go to the website and read it. And it's not perfect. There's a lot more still to be researched and reported. So if you do know better than us and you are on the ground in either Ukraine or Eastern Europe, then do get in touch, because we want to build up as full a picture as possible, of course.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you've done a brilliant job on that piece, and I would encourage everyone to go and read it and get the full picture. Of course, we will continue to report on this story as it develops, but we've got lots more to discuss today. On a slightly lighter note, I think we're going to go on and talk about some new technology that's been released into the market from our good friends at OpenAI, and that is, of course, the advent of ChatGPT 4. Now, as a journalist, Jake, I'm sure you've had similar experiences to me, which is now 4 months after the release of ChatGPT, you are sick to death of hearing it, aren't we all? Oh, well, they're coming for your job, Jake, and yours, Conor. But actually, now that I reported on this just yesterday or the day before, and I've started to buy into the hype. ChatGPT 4 is amazing. It's a great deal more accurate than ChatGPT 3, which was very prone to making mistakes. And I think one of the big problems with the way that it presents information is that whatever it concludes, it will present it as if it were fact, and it doesn't have quite the right capabilities to fact check itself. And so sometimes it will present you something as if it were fact, and it will be inaccurate. ChatGPT 4 is a lot more accurate. So one of the examples that OpenAI gave was that it was asked to take the uniform bar exam, the exam for lawyers. Obviously, a very complex examination with lots to remember and lots of information to process and understand, and probably quite subtle analytical skills required. Now, previous iterations of ChatGPT would perform in the bottom 10% of all performers in terms of the people who took that exam. So it didn't do especially well, probably better than I would do. I would probably be in the bottom 1%. ChatGPT was in the bottom 10, but now ChatGPT 4 performs in the top 10%. So it's basically, you know, according to that, it's as good as the top 10% of qualifying lawyers in the US or across the world, which is quite amazing. Another of the big developments, and one of the things that kind of takes this further than being just a simple chatbot, is that it now has image recognition capabilities, and I think that's going to make quite a huge difference. So there were some trivial examples that it gave. You could take a picture of your fridge and the ingredients that were in there, and it could kind of recognize what ingredients you have, find you a recipe that uses those particular ingredients, and tell you what to have for your dinner. Fair enough, good fun, pretty useful. But actually, it's going to have much more practical, much more significant implications than that. So there's a program called Be My Eyes, which is a program for the visually impaired and blind community. That was previously run by human volunteers. So if you were a visually impaired person, you could pick up your phone and connect to a volunteer through Be My Eyes, and your phone camera would take a video stream of what was in front of you, and a volunteer could then, from anywhere in the world, could tell you which tin to select off the shelf at the supermarket, which shirt is the white shirt and which shirt's the black shirt, or whatever. ChatGPT 4 is being integrated into that program. So it's now going to feature a virtual volunteer, a virtual assistant that will be able to help blind and visually impaired people to get on a bit easier in life. So it's going to have great implications for accessibility and people with disabilities, quite amazing. And then from the business and technology and all that kind of perspective, it's also going to have some pretty cool implications. So one of the demonstrations the founders gave was to draw in just a pencil drawing of a very simple website. Took a photograph of that drawing, uploaded it to ChatGPT 4 and said, turn this into a website. And it actually coded a real website in JavaScript in just a few minutes. So, you know, looking at future iterations and whether that will get more and more complex and sophisticated as time goes on, it could have huge implications for, you know, efficiency and technology, and helping people to access technology much more easily. So pretty impressive stuff. I don't know about you guys. I'm ready to get plugged into the matrix. That's fine. I'm buying into it now. I don't mind. Plug me in, put a chip in here, get the Neuralink going. I don't know. What do you reckon, guys? Will you join me in the metaverse?
Yeah, I mean, well, John says in the comments there are insane examples posted on Twitter for ChatGPT, and I think we've all seen similar. And the one you just referenced there, Connor, of drawing a kind of very rudimentary web page on a bit of paper with a pencil, and then it being able to actually design that in JavaScript is frankly frightening, and very, you know, what an amazing thing. I don't know how many of us are actually using this practically right now. If you are and you're watching, please post in the comments that you're using ChatGPT and also how you're using it. We should have got Pierre on, really, because he's one of the biggest proponents of this out of everyone in iGaming, I think. So, Nico, where do you stand on ChatGPT? Are you using it? Do you like it? Yeah, what are your thoughts?
So first of all, I don't use it at all. And just to answer the question of Connor, so I'm regularly taking my blue and red pill. So I am already living in the matrix. But maybe this is
We
a
can tell.
European thing. And as you Brexiters stepped out of the ring, maybe you're the matrix. There's a lost link, and you're desperately looking to hop on the train once again. Yeah. First of all, it's quite interesting and good stuff to just see how knowledge and existing knowledge can be distributed. As of now, and if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, ChatGPT can process knowledge up to 2021. So anything and everything which has happened after 2021 is not yet feeded into the system. As soon as ChatGPT will be feeded with live data. For example, there are rumors going around. First of all, Elon Musk was heavily invested into OpenAI, and he needed to step out of his investment as there is another investment ongoing with Twitter. Not with Twitter, but with an AI technology, which will rely on the data, on the live data, and will be able to process the live data of Twitter. And then I'm pretty sure this will be next level if we can see something, a technology processing live data. And yeah, as of now, it just seems to me like a little bit of, yeah, it's fun to see. And there are, of course, these great examples which are put onto Twitter and or any other social media. As of now, it's not frightening me at all. But I'm pretty sure there are still some existing limits. And of course, you just post something onto Twitter as soon as it worked out perfectly. But if each and everybody would just post the initial result of a question to ChatGPT, we would see the limits, the existing limits of the system already. And as soon as we're having a full picture of it all, yeah, this will be interesting to see how it evolves. But I'm not a fanboy like Pierre.
No, okay. I think you're right to point out the limitations, and one of those that's really obvious is the fact that the data it sort of scrapes from is only up till September 2021. So a lot of the information could potentially be out of date. But I think the biggest kind of block to this really becoming mainstream in its use cases is that we don't know how to command properly yet, right? We don't know how to ask it. We don't know how to use the right language. We don't know how to speak its language, I guess is the best way of saying it. Once we're able to do that, you can kind of, it'll be a lot easier for it to reach its potential in terms of the tasks that we want it to perform. Because I often open it and just sit there blankly thinking, what can I do with this incredible software? And then end up, writing a poem about what shirt I'm wearing today. So I could have done a better one than that. So that's user error, granted. And it's, I guess it's about how we learn to better interact with it over time.
Yeah. And as of now, there are no limitations yet to ChatGPT. If you just think about what are the first voice to command or however you want to call these systems, it's Siri and Alexa, etc. And they are already limited in how they can process data. And as of now, if you just ask silly things to Alexa or Siri, they always, first of all, their initial reply is like, I didn't get it. Could you repeat it? X, Y, Z. And this is mainly based on the fact that they are not allowed, due to law enforcement and legal requirements, to answer each and everything. Just think about younger kids asking Siri how to properly commit suicide or things like this, which of course rapidly come into mind if you start limiting these power tools. And that's why Alexa and Siri are limited in their capabilities as of now. And I'm pretty sure we will see same limitations to ChatGPT as soon as one legal requirements actually hits their surface as well.
Well, that took a really dark turn, Nico. Keep it light, mate. Jesus. Whew. Okay, yes, you're quite right. The ChatGPT has been limited already, I guess, because it won't say certain things. I once I'm hesitant to admit, Jake. I once asked if it would come up with some jokes about our editorial team. But it wouldn't. It refused. It said, no, Jake Evans is a nice gentleman and I won't make fun of him. Because it doesn't want to denigrate or push anybody down. It's all about being very positive. That has attracted some criticism already. But
Yeah.
that I suppose.
When we first covered it on Hot Copy, wasn't one of the comments saying the software's too woke or something?
Too
It
woke.
it prefers the unfiltered version.
Yes, but I think that's a discussion for another day. I think what I've been impressed by, and you're both quite right to point out its limitations. What I've been impressed by is the rate of change, because it's only 4 months since ChatGPT was released to the market. We're already on the 4th iteration. I think it was version 3 that came out first, but they've already increased its accuracy significantly. And so are we kind of approaching this singularity where ChatGPT will be able to code more and more sophisticated versions of itself and become exponentially more powerful? Maybe I'm going a bit iRobot with all this. Marco Brown says that he's using ChatGPT to get practical tips for building a distinctive and valuable affiliate website. It's helping to learn a lot with HTML, JavaScript, and CSS coding for WordPress, but still a long way to go. Yeah, I think that's absolutely one of the best things you can use it for. Use it as if it were your personal tutor. And I think what's powerful with that is that, of course, you can build on each prompt. You can build on each prompt and have a conversation with it. And so it kind of remembers all the things that it's already taught you, and it can build and give you more complex instructions as time goes on. So yes, and it certainly points to the argument that you made, Jake, which is that it's all about knowing what to ask it to get the best information from it.
Yeah, I think we'll have to get Pierre on at some point to discuss this in some more detail. He's certainly investigated it a lot more than us. In a WhatsApp chat, he said today all kids in the same classroom take the same classes regardless of their capabilities. Imagine a personalized AI tutor, sort of based on your style of learning. So, if you learn best through images or learn best through sounds or colors or whatever else, you could specify every subject based on that learning preference, and it could provide practical help to people that need it in that way. So yeah, we'll get Pierre on to discuss this another time, but I think for the three of us, it's probably time we move on to a different topic. Next up, Nico, we've got the German market, where the regulator has been kind of flexing its enforcement muscles for the first time. Do you want to take it away on this story?
Yeah, first of all, thank you. So, die gemeinsame Glücksspielbehörde der Länder, short GGL, has issued a severe fine against an unnamed licensed online gambling operator for advertising infractions. That's quite interesting, as this is the first time ever the German authority or the German regulator has fined a company. And the GGL has not named the operator involved or the exact size of the penalty, and they only describe the charge as a 5-digit and administrative offense notice. Regardless, this marks a major milestone as the regulator issues its first severe penalty for license breaches. So if we just dig down a little bit deeper, what has happened or what was the underlying? First of all, nobody as of now knows which company has been fined. There are rumors going around about companies who probably did not take the hit. Like Wunderino, probably they're out of the basket. I don't know, because the name has not been released yet. But from my perspective, and just based on a conversation, a discussion, which has happened yesterday or on Tuesday during a get-together in Germany, where Mr. Benter, he's one of the co-CEOs, besides Mr. Schwanke, on a panel, and he kind of not made the excuse, but he made a strong point. Like, okay, first of all, we need to make sure that each and everybody plays by the same rules, which is a good thing. First of all, it also happens at the KSA. They are also fining licensed entities as well. But the downside of this is pretty obvious. There are also operators who are not licensed in Germany as well, and they are not yet fined. And this also happens at the KSL as well. Just remember the video slots being penalized with roughly 10 million euros. N1 Interactive being penalized with 12 million euros. And then even the Bet365, which are touched down on the weekly wrap up, they have been fined with 400K. So you see a significant difference in between non-licensed entities and licensed entities. And in the end, it's all about signaling. So you just signal something into the market, which is, as of now, we are penalizing all the licensed entities. And from my perspective, this is pretty much the wrong signal sending out. First of all, you should start penalizing the non-licensed entity and literally force them, and hit them where it hurts the most, and this is usually their pocket or the wallet. So as said, there are discussions going on, especially if you think about that, we see declining revenues in Germany. Just to give you some numbers, for the 2022 sports betting revenue, where we had a World Cup, whether you like it or not, it was still a World Cup in the UAE. So with this significant sports betting event, we saw a decline of roughly 18% in the overall stakes, and this also implies that something in the market is going on, and even or especially the regulating authority should choose their signaling and their wording right. And from my perspective, penalizing the licensed entity as the first ever statement going out to the market has been a wrong one.
Yeah, and not only that, Nico, one of the comments that Ronald Benter made, and I quote, was, "The withdrawal of the permit in the event of repeated violations is a measure that we do not shy away from." So they're already talking about license revocations in Germany. And I know I take your point about it would be better to go after the unlicensed operators who are still targeting the market first, but actually, this is the first fine that's been issued by the GGL, and I'm sure German operators won't thank me for saying this, but they've got some catching up to do as compared to their European counterparts. It's a five-figure penalty, and so we know it's less than €1 million. If we compare that to your good old Uncle Rene at the Conspiratie KSA in the Netherlands, they have put out in their annual report that they issued just about €30 million in fines in 2022. I think it's fair to say we can see why people are accusing them of being somewhat overzealous with that in the Netherlands. 30 million in a relatively small, relatively new market compared to, I think, something like £45 million issued in the UK. Or in Great Britain, rather, last year. So the Netherlands are going very, very heavily for the relative size of their market, and Germany is kind of lagging behind a little bit. But I suppose this sets a precedent in some ways, and there may well be more to come.
And just as an insight, we are speaking about a licensed entity which has been listed on an affiliate website, where also non-licensed entities have been listed as well. So we're talking about advertisement breaches. And as Conor, as you already pointed out, picking up the KSA, if they penalized for roughly 30 million euros, I'm pretty sure that at least 80% of these 30 million euros have been gone out to non-licensed entities for sure. Picking up the point with the UK Gambling Commission, they mainly penalized companies for failing on AML requirements. Like, okay, you didn't do a proper check on depositing methods, or limits had been set too high. So picking up your point, I'm pretty sure there's a lot to do for each and every jurisdiction, but from my perspective, and also like the industry body as the Deutscher Sportwettenverband sees this as well, the first message usually you send out lasts the longest. And this should have been a non-licensed entity, just to send out a message, a clear statement like, okay, we are catching up with things, and of course we're also fining licensed entities as well. But the first message should have been a big fine to anyone not being licensed but still operating in Germany. That's just my point.
Yeah, really interesting, Nico. Nice summary. And I think those figures you quoted about revenue from Germany were from the German Sports Betting Association. And what's interesting this week is the regulators come back and kind of, argued against their statistics. It said that based on tax data provided by Germany's finance ministry, the sports betting channelization rate in Germany is well over 95%, which seems like quite the estimate to me. Fairly optimistic, I would imagine, from the regulators' point of view that it's 95%. But there we are. That's what they're claiming.
But also note, Jake, that's in reference to sports betting only. I don't think they mentioned online casino, where the limits are very strict in Germany, and the offering is very limited there. It's slots only, isn't it? Online slots only. So I think they're perhaps sitting on some figures about the online casino channelization rate. That's just my suspicion. I don't know. I've got nothing to back that up. It's just conjecture, as usual.
Yep. Okay. The fourth and final topic for this week was going to be on the collapse of the US bank SVB, which has made some headlines this week and has been followed up with the news today. I don't know if you've been following about Credit Suisse, which is also in a great deal of trouble, although that appears to have rallied after the bank basically secured a $54 billion loan from the Swiss Central Bank. Conor, next time you're short of money, maybe you could reach out to the Swiss Central Bank for a similar figure.
Yeah, happy to oblige.
I don't have too much to say on this myself. Sonia wrote the story for our website, so do check it out. But I really enjoyed this opening to a long feature about the collapse of SVB on The Atlantic this week, so I'm just going to read it to you. It says, if you are a customer of Silicon Valley Bank, you should be furious with its executives for their incompetent risk management and poor communication strategy. If you work in startups or the technology sector, you should be angry at the venture capitalists who spurred a bank run only to turn around and beg Uncle Sam for help with impudence. Perhaps most of all, you should be furious with the American government, not for its creation and execution of a bailout to protect the broader financial sector, but because its help was needed in the first place. You should be mad at Congress for loosening regulations on medium-sized banks like SVB 5 years ago, and you should be mad at the federal and state regulators who, as supervisors of the system, allowed this whole mess to happen. Which I thought was a hell of an intro to an article. It caught my attention for sure.
Yeah, plenty to be angry about there. Fortunately, I practice mindfulness and meditation, so I don't feel angry at all. But I understand what people do.
That's probably because you didn't have money in SVB, Conor. That helped.
Well, you don't know that for sure, but no.
And then the new chief executive of SVB has come out today. This was reported by TechCrunch. And he said the single most important thing you can do to ensure that our bank survives is return all of your deposits. So he's literally come back with his cap in hand and said, anybody that's taken money out of us in the last 24 hours, please put it back in. There we are.
Yes, and it's not just furious journalists in the Atlantic who are directing ire towards the US banking system at the moment. It's the whole situation has attracted a lot of criticism from Europe as well, according to a piece I read in the Financial Times today. US authorities are being accused of incompetence over this failure, and they're being accused of kind of tearing up the rule book that was created in no small part by those same authorities following what happened in 2008. It's a complex situation, Jake. My experience with banking goes as far as about opening a current account and having a credit card. That's about all I know. But it's certainly it's been a big story in global headlines this week. The ratings agency Moody's has changed its outlook on the US banking system from stable to negative now after the collapse of 3 banks in a week. It said that the operating environment for US banks is rapidly deteriorating. And then, of course, that kind of US sentiment has spread into Europe, as you mentioned, with Credit Suisse, also putting the fear of God into some of its customers. So hopefully, whatever actions taken, we can see something happen that will shore up these runs on the banks, and we won't have another situation like 2008. The root causes of this, as I understand them, are fundamentally different to what happened in 2008. It's not the same situation. But I suppose there are a few parallels that could be drawn there. Can you tell I don't know what I'm talking about?
I think we'll draw a line under it there, Conor. You did a great job. And no, nobody can tell. Nobody can ever tell. That's why the show's so great. There is just one thing I want to shout out actually before we log off, and that is friend of the pod, Phil Pearson, who we had on last week and has been a great special guest for us on several occasions, has launched a charity raffle on the website Raffle. I think hopefully our producer can stick a link to it in the comments. But basically, he's asked gaming industry companies to provide prizes, and it's £5 a ticket to enter, and all proceeds will go to the Malta Society for the Protection and Care of Animals, which is a lovely thing. Prizes include a PlayStation 5, an Apple Watch, an espresso machine, Bose headphones, iPad. So if any of those things take your fancy, do enter and support a great cause. Shout out to Phil for setting that up. Nothing more to say on that, really. I would also like to shout out Playson, our sponsor of Weekly News. Obviously, none of this would be possible without them. So thanks a lot, guys. And thank you very much to a lively comment section today. We've covered quite a few topics, and it's got the discussion going, which is great to see. Thank you to Nico. Weekly News is never the same without you, my friend. And thank you to Conor, most importantly, for his banking expertise and insight at the end there. We'll be with you at the same time next week. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks, Nico.
Thank you.
Thanks to everyone watching.
Ta-ra.
Summer, step into the Mediterranean haven of Malta. Crystal clear waters, ancient ruins, and towering cliffs. The iGaming industry is converging in Malta to take on everything from green courses, the hottest tournament tables, courts, lanes, and of course, the UNESCO city of Valletta for iGaming Next 2023. A week-long festival experience rounding up with the biggest high-end European pool party, Showers, celebrating its 10-year anniversary. Join over 4,000 senior delegates and top affiliates from all around the world alongside industry giants for an unforgettable iGaming festival week. iGaming Next 2023. Contact our sales team for sponsorship opportunities.